My journey with agoraphobia didn't start with fear, it started with loss. Before 2016, I was living what I considered a normal life, taking care of my mom and raising my 2 kids, managing the beautiful chaos that comes with being both a parent and a caregiver. Then one ordinary day, everything shattered. I found my mom, my healthy, vibrant mother, passed away in her chair. There was no warning, no goodbye, just the devastating finality of walking into a room and discovering that someone you love is simply gone. That moment broke something fundamental inside me, and I spiraled in ways I never could have imagined. The grief was so consuming, so overwhelming, that it led to hospitalization, and eventually I lost everything. For 2 years, I was homeless, trying to survive while my mind was fracturing under the weight of trauma I couldn't process. When I finally got an apartment in 2018, I thought I was on the path to recovery, but that's when the agoraphobia truly took hold. At first, it seemed reasonable. I didn't want to leave because I had been without a home for so long, and having 4 walls and a door that locked felt like the most precious thing in the world. But then the thoughts started creeping in. What if something bad happens when I'm out there? What if I can't get away? What if I can't get back home? The anxiety built and built until it reached its most terrifying form. I would see vivid images of myself passed away, just like my mom, and I would imagine my kids finding me the same way I found her. I could feel their pain, their trauma, their devastation, as if it were already real, and that vision would send me completely over the edge. The fear of recreating that trauma for my children became a prison stronger than any physical walls. Then 2020 came, and the world locked down. Suddenly, everyone was staying inside, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel judged for my fear. The pandemic normalized my isolation and even provided solutions I desperately needed. Grocery delivery, telehealth, everything brought right to my door. What had been seen as dysfunction became the recommended way to live, and in some twisted way, it validated my terror while simultaneously making it easier to sink deeper into it. I stopped fighting to go outside because I no longer had to explain why I couldn't. The world came to me, and I disappeared further into my apartment, into my fear, into the safety of controlled space. Now here I am, 2 years of leaving my home only for hospital emergencies, working incredibly hard with a therapist who comes to me because I still can't consistently go out there. Relearning life without the fear and triggers is exhausting in ways that are hard to explain to people who haven't experienced it. Every small step forward feels monumental, looking out a window without panic, standing near a door, imagining myself outside without immediately spiraling into catastrophic thinking. It's not just about walking out a door. It's about rewiring a brain that has spent years convinced that the outside world equals death, loss, and unbearable pain. This is why I make videos and engage in comments, why I spend time researching and learning about all types of people and their stories. It's my way of connecting with actual human beings, of reminding myself that there's a world out there full of people living and surviving and connecting. I know so many people don't understand agoraphobia. They think it's just about being shy or preferring to stay home, but it's so much more complex than that. It's trauma that has wrapped itself around your nervous system until your body believes that safety can only exist within a very small, controlled space. By sharing my story, I hope to help others understand that agoraphobia isn't a choice or a preference. It's a response to overwhelming pain, and recovery is possible even when it feels impossibly hard. Most people picture someone who's terrified of stepping outside their front door, someone who hasn't left their house in years, curtains drawn, living in self-imposed isolation. And while that can be part of the story, it's not the whole truth. In fact, it's barely scratching the surface of what agoraphobia actually is. The reality is far more complex, far more insidious, and affects millions of people who go outside every single day. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah goes to work 5 days a week. She drives her car, walks into her office building, sits at her desk, and interacts with colleagues. To anyone watching, Sarah is living a completely normal life. But what they don't see is the white-knuckled grip on her steering wheel every morning. They don't see her carefully mapping out her route to avoid highways and bridges. They don't notice how she always sits closest to the exit in meetings, or how she never ever takes the elevator. Sarah has agoraphobia, and she goes outside all the time. The word agoraphobia comes from the Greek words for marketplace and fear, which already tells us something interesting. It wasn't originally about being afraid of the outdoors or open spaces. It was about being afraid of the marketplace, that crowded, chaotic, unpredictable place where anything could happen. And that's much closer to what agoraphobia actually is. It's not a fear of outside, it's a fear of situations where escape might be difficult or help might not be available if something goes terribly wrong. Think about what that really means. Imagine walking through your day with a constant nagging voice in the back of your mind asking, what if something bad happens right now? What if I can't get away? What if no one can help me? That voice doesn't care whether you're outside or inside. It cares about whether you feel trapped. For some people with agoraphobia, bridges are absolutely terrifying, and it makes perfect sense when you understand what's really going on. You're suspended in the air, locked into a single path with no way to turn around, no way to escape if something goes wrong. If you have a panic attack on a bridge, you can't just pull over and get out. You're committed. You have to keep going. That feeling of being trapped, of having no control, of being unable to escape, that's what agoraphobia feeds on. Or consider elevators, small metal boxes that trap you inside, controlled by machinery you don't understand, with doors that won't open until the elevator decides to let you out. For someone with agoraphobia, an elevator ride can feel like volunteering to be imprisoned. What if it gets stuck? What if you can't breathe? What if you have a panic attack and everyone stares at you and you can't get out? The outside world has nothing to do with it. Crowds are another common trigger, and again, it's not about being outside. It's about being surrounded by unpredictable human beings, hemmed in on all sides, unable to move freely, unable to escape quickly if you need to. A crowded subway car, a packed concert venue, even a busy grocery store on a Saturday afternoon can become a nightmare scenario. You're not afraid of the people themselves necessarily. You're afraid of being trapped among them with no clear path to safety. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Many people with agoraphobia develop something called a safe zone. This might be their home, but it might also be a specific room in their home or their car, or even just being within a certain distance of a particular person. The safe zone isn't about being indoors or outdoors. It's about being in a place where they feel they have control, where they know they can handle whatever happens, where escape is always possible. Some people with agoraphobia can travel hundreds of miles from home without any problem as long as they're with their safe person. Take that person away, and suddenly they can't walk to the end of their own driveway. Others can go anywhere they want during the day, but become completely housebound after dark. The physical location hasn't changed. What's changed is their perception of safety and control. The fear often centers around having a panic attack in a situation where escape would be difficult or embarrassing. And here's the cruel irony. The fear of having a panic attack can actually trigger a panic attack. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're afraid of being afraid, and that fear feeds on itself, growing stronger with each avoided situation, each canceled plan, each time you choose the safe option over the challenging one. Let's talk about what a panic attack actually feels like, because understanding this is crucial to understanding agoraphobia. Your heart starts racing, pounding so hard, you're convinced something is wrong with it. Your chest tightens, you can't catch your breath. You feel dizzy, disconnected from reality, like you're watching yourself from outside your own body. Your hands tingle, you sweat, you feel nauseous. And overwhelming all of this is an absolute primal certainty that you are dying right now, in this moment. Now imagine experiencing that on a crowded bus, or in the middle of a bridge, or in a movie theater, or at your child's school play. The panic attack itself is terrifying enough, but the context makes it so much worse. You can't escape. People are watching. You're making a scene. You're trapped with this overwhelming terror and nowhere to go and no way to make it stop. After experiencing that once or twice or several times, your brain starts trying to protect you. It identifies the situations where panic attacks have happened or could happen, and it starts sending warning signals. Don't go there, don't do that, stay where it's safe. And those warning signals feel like anxiety, which feels uncomfortably similar to the beginning of a panic attack, which makes you more anxious, which makes you more convinced that you need to avoid that situation. The avoidance starts small. Maybe you stop taking the highway and stick to back roads. Maybe you start shopping at odd hours when stores are less crowded. Maybe you stop going to restaurants and start ordering delivery instead. Each avoidance feels like a relief in the moment. You didn't have to face the fear. You stayed safe. But each avoidance also teaches your brain that the situation really was dangerous, that you were right to be afraid, that you need to avoid even more situations to stay safe. This is how agoraphobia grows. It's not usually a sudden thing where someone wakes up one day terrified of the outside world. It's a gradual constriction, a slow tightening of the boundaries of your life. First you avoid highways, then you avoid driving altogether. First you avoid crowded stores, then you avoid all stores. First you feel uncomfortable far from home, then you feel uncomfortable leaving your neighborhood, then you feel uncomfortable leaving your house. And here's something that makes agoraphobia particularly misunderstood. It often doesn't look like fear from the outside. It looks like flakiness. It looks like someone who constantly cancels plans at the last minute. It looks like someone who always has an excuse for why they can't do something. It looks like someone who's antisocial or lazy or just doesn't care enough to make an effort. People with agoraphobia often desperately want to do the things they're avoiding. They want to go to their friend's wedding. They want to take that vacation. They want to advance in their career. But the fear is so overwhelming, so physically intense, that it feels impossible. And then they feel guilty and ashamed on top of the fear because they know they're letting people down. They know their limitations don't make sense. They know they should just be able to push through it. The shame and secrecy around agoraphobia make it worse. People don't talk about it because they're embarrassed. They make up excuses instead of explaining what's really going on. They isolate themselves further because they're convinced no one would understand. And without talking about it, without seeking help, the condition just continues to grow and take up more space in their lives. What's particularly cruel about agoraphobia is that it often strikes people who were previously adventurous and independent. Someone who used to travel the world for work suddenly can't drive across town. Someone who was the life of every party suddenly can't handle being in a room with more than 3 people. The contrast between who they were and who they've become is devastating. And it's not just about the specific situations that trigger fear. It's about the loss of freedom, the loss of spontaneity, the loss of possibility. When you have agoraphobia, you can't just decide to do something on a whim. Every outing requires planning, preparation, and often a significant amount of courage. You have to map out escape routes. You have to make sure your safe person is available. You have to time things carefully to avoid crowds or traffic or other triggers. Life becomes exhausting. The physical symptoms are real, by the way. This isn't just in someone's head. When you're experiencing agoraphobic fear, your body is having a genuine physiological response. Your sympathetic nervous system is activating, flooding your body with adrenaline, preparing you for fight or flight. Your body believes you're in danger. The fact that the danger isn't objectively real doesn't change the physical experience. Some people with agoraphobia also develop contamination fears. They become terrified of germs, of getting sick, of touching things that other people have touched. This might seem unrelated, but it follows the same pattern. It's about feeling unsafe in situations where you can't control what happens to you. You can't see germs. You can't know for certain that you won't get sick. And if you do get sick, you might be trapped in that sick body, unable to escape the discomfort and fear. The fear of accidents works the same way. What if there's a car crash? What if there's a fire? What if something terrible happens and you can't get away? These aren't irrational fears in the sense that these things can actually happen. The irrationality is in the intensity and the constant preoccupation with worst-case scenarios. Treatment for agoraphobia exists and it works, but it requires facing the very things that feel most terrifying. Cognitive behavioral therapy, particularly exposure therapy, is considered the gold standard. The idea is to gradually, systematically expose yourself to feared situations in a controlled way, starting with the least frightening and working up to the most challenging. You learn that the feared outcome doesn't actually happen, or that if it does, you can handle it. But here's the thing about exposure therapy. It requires repeatedly doing the thing that terrifies you. It requires feeling the fear and staying in the situation anyway. It requires experiencing panic attacks and learning that they pass, that they don't actually harm you, that you can survive them. This is incredibly difficult. It takes courage and commitment and support. Medication can help too, particularly for managing the panic attacks that often accompany agoraphobia. Anti-anxiety medications and antidepressants can take the edge off the fear enough that exposure therapy becomes possible. But medication alone usually isn't enough. The avoidance patterns are learned behaviors, and they need to be unlearned through practice and experience. The good news is that agoraphobia is treatable. People recover, they reclaim their lives, they learn to manage their anxiety and expand their safe zones until those zones encompass everything they want to do. But it takes work, and it takes time, and it takes understanding from the people around them. If you know someone with agoraphobia, the most helpful thing you can do is believe them. Believe that their fear is real, even if it doesn't make logical sense to you. Don't minimize it or tell them to just get over it or suggest that they're not trying hard enough. Offer to be a safe person if they need one. Be patient with canceled plans. Celebrate small victories because every step outside the comfort zone is a genuine achievement. And if you have agoraphobia yourself, know that you're not alone, you're not crazy, and you're not weak. Your brain is trying to protect you in the only way it knows how. It's just being a little too enthusiastic about it. With help, with treatment, with practice, you can teach your brain that the world is safer than it thinks, that you're more capable than it believes, that fear doesn't have to run your life. Agoraphobia isn't about being afraid of the outside world. It's about being afraid of situations where you feel trapped, helpless, unable to escape if something goes wrong. It's about the fear of fear itself, the terror of losing control in a place where no one can help you. And it's far more common and far more complex and far more treatable than most people realize. That's all for today. Thanks for hanging out. Don't forget to subscribe and be kind to each other.